Obviously, tides on the Gulf Coast are something that we will be watching, and flooding, particularly around the Picayune area in that Pearl River County and over to the southwest portion of Mississippi, nearest the Baton Rouge corridor, if you will. And then, as we talked about earlier, later on, even probably early part of next week, there's another system building off the west coast of Africa, where many of these systems begin. We will monitor that very closely. NOAA had predicted very early in the year that this would be an active tropical storm year. Somewhere between 12 and 15 storms would be available. So unfortunately, this will probably not be our last time to be together. What we will do now with the staff that you see here from the agencies around the state is use this as an exercise. This will be an opportunity for us to go about determining what our assets are, how we might be able to use those assets when available. We have FEMA with us today, so we will be working closely with our local and federal partners. But the best that we can do is continue to monitor what conditions may come from this particular event, but also give us an opportunity to respond in a real-world situation. So we will begin to do that just now. I know we're getting calls from people around Mississippi. I am. That want to help. We will try to coordinate that through our volunteer services here today and put out specific information. Colonel, if you want to respond to that, but how someone in the state of Mississippi, organizations that want to respond can. Would ask you not to self-deploy, do not get goods and supplies and head towards Texas. This system is not ended. It is not over. The worst thing someone could do would be to find themselves in the second phase of this storm, to be in a flooded area with a large truck full of supplies and unable to return. There would be no electricity. There may be difficulty in finding additional fuel, finding some place to stay. So we are discouraging anyone from trying to load trucks and head into Texas. That would be not only not helpful at this time to the people of Texas, but could endanger those that are self-deploying and put first responders at risk trying to respond to people who are in that area with heavy equipment or supplies. So stay away unless we're called. Colonel, you want to respond to any
thank you,
further
Governor.
information?
Just a couple of other things to echo what the governor is saying. Right now, we're tracking that the state of Texas has only sent out 20 requests for out-of-state assistance. And the majority of that is coming from Oklahoma and areas to their west. They've got 3 National Guard requests for helicopters, but I think it's important to understand the difference in Texas and Mississippi. Texas's population is 25.1 million, and there's 4 million people impacted right now by this storm. So Texas can take care of Texas. What the governor was saying about commodities, HEB Grocery Chain, a Texas-based grocer, has volunteered to provide all commodities that might be needed on points of distribution. So right now, again, we're asking for just patience and to wait to see what Texas really says that they need before we start volunteering. One historical note that I think is very, very important of why we in Mississippi, Louisiana, and Florida are taking a wait-and-see approach right now is after Hurricane Katrina made landfall in 2005, we saw 10 additional hurricanes and 6 tropical storms in the 2005 season. So if we all go rushing in to help Texas when they haven't asked for help yet, we're leaving our citizens very, very vulnerable right now. So again, Texas does this very, very well. They have literally tens of millions of people standing by to help the people of Houston and the impacted areas. But people who do want to volunteer, like the governor said, it needs to be coordinated. We're fortunate to have Warren Miller here, who is in the Mississippi Volunteer Organizations Active in Disaster, and Warren is doubly blessed to be a member of the national VOAD. So what Administrator Long was asking the FEMA administrator today was anyone who wants to volunteer needs to go onto the national VOAD site and register before deploying. And Warren will be available to answer any kind of questions that we have after we have our 2:30 state agency head conference calls. Sir, that's all I have.
Any questions?
Do you anticipate a request for the Mississippi National Guard to get involved?
No.
And one thing on that too, Texas National Guard has 19,000 soldiers and airmen, and Governor Abbott has activated all of their National Guard. Let me put that in perspective. At the height of Hurricane Katrina, the most National Guardsmen we had in Mississippi was 15,000. So Texas, again, has a very robust National Guard with all kinds of assets. Utah, Arizona, and Nebraska have sent helicopters in, which is the most precious commodity that the Guard can provide, but also the Coast Guard has been provided helicopters as well. So again, as devastating as this storm is, Texas has got the resources, at least right now, to really be able to take care of their own.
Are you anticipating any possible long-term migration from Texas if this is as bad as Katrina?
I'm not certain that we would be a location of migration of those. More than likely, they would head to areas that wouldn't be affected by the storm. So if I was leaving an area that had a storm effect, I would want to go further west or perhaps further north. Some of the areas that would Oklahoma and others that would border Texas. And not go into the Gulf region where we may have another event in several weeks.
Touched on this, Governor, and I wonder if it's still the case. The fact this thing can double back, is there always that specter that you don't know what another storm may do?
And that's the troubling part is this particular storm, as others have done, has that counterclockwise rotation, so it could actually go back into the Gulf, maybe pick up some additional moisture and slowly move through that Louisiana, Texas area again, and another 7-8 inches of rainfall potential. But it's just a waiting to see. As you heard from the National Weather Service, they're uncertain as to exactly what this storm will do. So we have to, as we always do, try to prepare for the worst of it, even here in Mississippi. But as I said, it gives us another opportunity to go through this exercise to be fully prepared in the event that we have a tropical storm or hurricane that comes into the Gulf and affects the state of Mississippi at this type of level.
Governor and Director, given the track that it appears this storm may follow up the Mississippi River, are we worried about these areas of the Delta and of Southwest Mississippi that often do see flooding when we get heavy rains?
I always worry about the Delta and Mississippi River, and when you see DeSoto County being involved, you may remember just a few years ago we had some surprise and devastating flooding in DeSoto County. So we'll be watching that, monitoring with the Weather Service on a fairly regular basis, deploying assets if necessary. But that particular portion, particularly in DeSoto County, is very good emergency management systems, and they will alert us as they may need any assistance from the rest of the state or from MEMA.